My least favorite part of the Lance. Already? Fine. My least favorite part of starting to watch cycling when I started to watch cycling was the marginalization of flat stages. As if being able to catch the rear wheel of a race moto through a 40-mile-per-hour bend, like Kevin Reza does here, is somehow a lesser skill. Or leading out. Sure, everyone knows it's tricky to fire up from 8K, like Omega Pharma does here with, wait for it, Sylvain Chavanel. But by 1.5K, it's Lotto on the front with 3 dudes and a bonus Sojusen rider. Then Matteo Trentin absolutely takes over, forcing anyone who wants to keep up to grab a wheel. Greg Henderson gets back on the front for Lotto, but with Greipel not behind him, it only makes Gerrit Segeman's job easier. By the time Cav launches, it's really just a question of who will take second. In the end, Edvald Bosenhagen, showing the power of a good draft by beating the almost certainly faster Greipel and Sagan to the line. Things went less well for Cavendish in stage 6, a little tumble at 30k, but he can just draft the cars. That's easy, right? 30 miles an hour, 4 inches off a bumper, drift bunny hopping, way less skill than Watts per feet climbing fast. Cav did get back, thanks in part to a pack-slowing effort from, wait for it, Sylvain Chavanel, but as much as I respect the moxie and skills of Michal Kwiatkowski, having him trade elbows with the Argos Shimano rolling beef auction is no way to start a lead-out. By the final kilometer, Lotto had taken command up front while Cav was still back in Corsica. Stegeman's got his teammate up to the French mainland at least, but the Manxman still had to open up from well outside 250 meters. Cav almost got on terms with Greipel, but it was an easy win for the Gorilla's fresh legs, second for Sagan's prime position, and third for Kittel thanks to Cav's unwitting leadout. Oh, and a mysterious field split in the finale meant Green Edge's Simon Gerrans lost the yellow jersey to Green Edge's Daryl Impey. Stage 7 Hilly profile could catch the other sprinters out for Sagan, but that means someone would have to ride at the front for 110 kilometers. Sure, why not? Pursuit called it off, there are mountains tomorrow, but hammering all day is not known to sharpen one's skills in the closing kilometer. Argos came up to challenge, but in the end, it was pure chaos. Cannondale's Fabio Sabatini found a gap at 400 meters, and immediately John Degenkolb tried to cut in ahead of Sagan. He's pinched out, but goes again through a nutty gap along the barriers, and still absurdly early. Maybe if Lampre's Manuele Mori or Saxo Bank's Daniele Benatti had been a little more aggressive, things might have been different, but in the end, the result was a virtual lead-out for Sagan, who finally got a stage win to complement his points lead. Stage 8, the real tour begins. 4-man break, Green Edge gamely keeping tabs on it, but by 57k to go, the GC contenders let themselves be known. Sky, Belkin, Movistar, and Saxo Bank. Thomas Vogler flailed around for a bit on the HC Col de Payer, but it was Movistar's Nairo Quintana who really set things off at 36k. Brief technique pointer, ride like the guy on the left. And led the race solo over the KOM by about a minute. However, a mass of 126 pounds does not incline one to descending, and Peter Kennaugh led and occasionally distanced the chase for Sky, having Quintana's lead to 27 seconds by the bottom of the final climb. Then Richie Porte got on the front, and 2k later, with over 5 kilometers left, he and Froome had distanced the last chaser. Haven't seen that happen so far from the line since that kind of Well, it was just numerically impressive. Froome caught and dropped Quintana, Porte waited briefly, then also dropped Quintana, and the Sky duo finished a minute and 25 and 34 seconds respectively ahead of the next finisher. Fourth and fifth were Belkin's Bauke Mollema and Lorenz ten Dam, who dropped off Sky's pace earlier rather than later, perhaps a tactic to remember in the coming days, or maybe for a few years down the line. But those dreading reruns from the early aughts would be pleased by stage 9 when Garmin set the race on fire from the first and nominally easiest of the day's 5 climbs, which is not normal. Oh, come on, I didn't even mean it that way. By the time the cameras switched on, Elvis had left the building with Pierre Roland and some buddies, leaving a totally isolated Froome and the other heads of state floundering a minute back, except for Porte, who'd been dropped on the day's second climb and was a further minute down, possibly getting even less help than his team leader, in no small part due to Kennaugh suffering the reckless driving of a Garmin rider earlier in the stage. Over the Cat 1 Col de Peresord, Tom DeGent absolutely dummied Pierre Roland into giving him the mountain points, but behind them the model had been set for the rest of the stage. Movistar hammering away, trying to keep Froome away from his teammates in preparation for an inevitable assault. Quintana finally commenced the attacking at 35k to go, Froome countered, and after the catch, Dan Martin decided he might be a little bit less appealing to chase with the GC battle underway. Jakob Fuglsang was quick to follow, but more Quintana-Froome antics closed the window for attacks and let the now cooperating escapees pull out 46 seconds by the top of the climb. Kwiatkowski was the only head of state in a chasing mood and couldn't get any assistance, leaving Martin and Fuglsang to contest a tactical sprint. Martin refused to come by in the final K, even getting on the brakes at one point, while Fuglsang kept a close eye on his rival, trying to deny him the inside line around the final bend. Unfortunately for the Astana rider, Martin had too much speed and too much pavement to play with, and made short work of Fuglsang in a well-timed burst. I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that's how the race was won. Although GC-wise, there wasn't much to say about Stage 9 other than Port's collapse. It's an important statement win for Garmin, and Movistar certainly slapped Froome around, but he's got a day to recover, plus that TT on Wednesday. Although everyone's yapping at me about how Quintana can time trial, so maybe he'll just go postal. Yeah, should have seen that one coming.